You're standing in the dark, not dark like night, but dark like the void before creation. The air is thick, still, heavy with the weight of time. It's not just silence. It's the silence of something ancient, something waiting to be understood. Your torchlight catches the edge of something rough. A line, a shape, a mark that doesn't belong to nature. It's there, hidden in the rock, a whisper from the past, a footprint in the darkness of history. This is not a cave. This is a portal, a window into the minds of those who came before, who looked at the world and tried to make sense of it, to capture it, to leave something behind. We don't know who made these, or why, but we know this. They were trying to say something. They were trying to tell us something. And in that, we find the first roots of what we call storytelling. We're talking about the first stories ever told, etched into the bones of the earth itself. These are not just drawings. They are echoes of a time before words, when humans used color and line to whisper their world into existence. These images were not random. They were part of a ritual, a record, a map of the unknown. They were not just art. They were the first attempts to make sense of the world, to capture the mystery of life and death. To look at these paintings is to see the origins of the human imagination. They are the first stories, the first myths, the first way of making sense of the universe without the written word. These images were not just for the people who made them. They were for those who would come after. They carried a message across time, a way of passing down knowledge, belief, and identity in a world without language. So, when we look at these cave paintings, we're not just looking at the past, we're looking at the roots of storytelling, the spark that ignited the human mind to create, to imagine, and to connect. These paintings are not just art. They are the first chapters of human imagination, the origins of the stories that shape our identity. Every line, every color, is a whisper from the past, calling out to us across millennia. When we look at these images, we're not just seeing ancient people. We're seeing ourselves. The same urge to tell stories, to make meaning, to connect across time, is still alive in us today. The stories we tell today, whether in books, films, or even social media, have roots that stretch back to these caves. We are all part of the same narrative thread. Understanding our origins as storytellers gives us a deeper sense of purpose. It reminds us that we are not just consumers of stories. We are their creators, their keepers, their inheritors. So, yes, you should care. Not just because of history, but because of who you are. You are the descendant of those first storytellers, and your voice is part of the story that continues. The earliest stories were etched into stone, not written in ink. In the deep caves of Lascaux, shadows of animals and humans danced on the walls, telling tales of the hunt, of the sacred, of the unknown. These images were not mere decoration. They were maps of the mind, records of what was seen, felt, and feared. Every stroke, every mark was a step toward understanding the world and our place within it. As time moved forward, so did the stories. From the caves of Lascaux to the temples of ancient Egypt, the narrative form evolved. But the core remained the same: to make sense of chaos, to give shape to the unknown. The written word was a revolution, but it was built upon the foundation of the spoken painted. Every great story, every great text, started with a single image, a single voice, a single question. We are still in the cave, but now the walls are made of paper, screens, and sound. The story is not changed, only the medium. The first storyteller is still with us, whispering in the silence between words. Imagine you're sitting in a dark cave, holding a flickering torch. You look around, and suddenly, the walls come alive with colors and shapes that tell a story. These paintings aren't just pictures. They're like the first books. They help us remember, dream, and connect with something bigger than ourselves. These stories help them survive. They taught how to hunt, when to travel, and how to stay safe in the wild. Even today, when we tell stories, we're doing something very old. We're sharing our world, our fears, and our dreams, just like the people in the caves did. Before the brush touched the wall, there was silence. A cave, untouched by time, its stone surface worn smooth by millennia of wind and water. The air was cool, thick with the scent of earth and damp stone. The artist, a hunter or a gatherer, stood at the entrance, eyes scanning the shadows. They were not alone in this space, but the presence of others felt distant, as if the cave had been waiting for this moment. The tools were simple: charcoal, ochre, and the fingers of those who had learned to read the world through the lens of survival and myth. They did not know the power of what they were about to create. This was not just an act of creation. It was an offering, a way to bridge the gap between the known and the unknown, the human and the divine. The cave was a witness, and the story was about to begin. The artist holds a charcoal stick, pressing it into the damp earth. Each stroke is deliberate, each line a whisper of memory. The cave is silent, yet filled with the echoes of those who came before. The charcoal is not just pigment, but a bridge between the tangible and the imagined. It is a tool that transforms the stone into a canvas, the cave into a stage for the stories of the people who once lived here. The artist's hand moves with purpose, guided by memory and ritual. Each mark is a word, each shape a symbol, each line a pulse of the past that beats through the stone. The process is not just artistic, but sacred. The act of drawing is a way of summoning the past, of giving voice to the silent world of the cave, and of ensuring that the story is not lost. The charcoal is a vessel for memory, a tool that binds the present to the ancestors, the known to the unknown. It is the first step in the long, winding path of storytelling. The clever twist lies in the use of shadow and light, a silent language that transforms static lines into moving figures. The artists understood that by carefully placing their hands and bodies, they could create the illusion of motion and life. This was not just art. It was performance, a moment frozen in time. The viewer's eyes followed the movement of the shadow, imagining it as a living being, a spirit, or a hunter in the dark. This technique allowed them to tell stories that could not be told with color alone. It was a form of storytelling that required both sight and imagination, a way to make the cave walls breathe with life. It was a trick as old as storytelling itself, using the power of suggestion and the play of light to create a narrative that was not just seen, but felt. This clever use of light and shadow is one of the earliest examples of how human ingenuity transformed the cave walls into a stage, where the past could be reenacted and the unknown could be imagined. Beneath the pigments and the handprints, there is a science of survival. The ancient artists were not just storytellers. They were recording the rhythms of life and death in their environment. The minerals they used were not chosen randomly. They were sourced from nearby rocks, ground and mixed with water or animal fat to create a stable medium. The use of color was not arbitrary either. Red often symbolized blood, life, or danger, while black was used for outlines and depth, creating a sense of three-dimensional form. Even the act of painting was a form of ritual, a way to commune with forces beyond the visible, to encode knowledge that could be passed down through generations. These early experiments in visual language were not just artistic. They were a form of proto-science, a way of understanding the world through observations, repetition, and symbolic representation. Imagine, if you will, that the cave is not just a shelter, but a stage. The walls are not blank, but a canvas where the past is painted in pigment and memory. These animals are not just images. They are the first scripts, the first stories, the first attempts to capture the fleeting world and give it shape and meaning. The artist was not just recording life, but encoding it, translating the rhythm of the hunt, the pulse of the wilds, into something that could be remembered, passed on, and even revered. In that moment, the cave became a bridge between the known and the unknown, between the present and the ancestors, between the animal and the human. And so, the first stories were born, not in words, but in color, in motion, in the silent dialogue between hand and stone, between man and memory. Comment this emoji if you made it to the end. Imagine a world where memory is not recorded, but lived, where stories are passed down by voice, not text. The human mind, vast and fragile, carries the weight of history on its own. Without writing, memory is a fragile thing, prone to decay, distortion, and loss. It is a kind of living archive, but one that can vanish with the passing of time or the death of the storyteller. The moment writing was born, it was not just a tool. It was a revolution in how we think, remember, and preserve the past. It changed the way we live and the way we dream. This video is about that moment, the birth of literacy, and how it reshaped the very fabric of human memory. It's a journey into the heart of how we came to trust the written word. So what exactly are we talking about? We're not just discussing letters and books. We're examining how the act of writing reshaped the way human minds store, recall, and interpret the past. Before writing, memory was a living oral tradition. Stories passed from one generation to the next, sung or whispered, fragile and fleeting. Writing allowed the past to be fixed, preserved, and accessed, not just remembered, but recorded. It was a shift from a collective memory to an individual one, from the oral to the written. This transformation didn't just alter how we remember. It changed how we think, how we argue, how we construct truth. It gave us the power to archive, to debate, to preserve. To understand the written word is to understand the quiet revolution that allowed human civilization to expand, to endure, and to shape itself across time. You might think memory is a personal thing, but it's always been shaped by the tools we use to record it. The written word isn't just a way to remember. It's a way to control what is remembered. Every time we write, we're not just capturing the past. We're defining the present. Literacy gives us a power over time that no one else has ever had. Literacy isn't just about remembering more. It's about remembering differently. It's about creating a world where certain truths can outlive the people who spoke them. Secretly, you already care about this. You care because you want to know what's true, what's real, and what will be remembered when you're gone. The written word is a mirror that reflects not just the past, but the values we choose to preserve. And that's why, in a world of forgetting, we must remember how it changed everything. In the earliest human societies, memory was the cornerstone of culture. Oral traditions carried history, law, and identity, passed from one generation to the next with precision and reverence. But as civilizations grew, the need to preserve knowledge beyond the lifespan of individuals became urgent. The Sumerians, with their cuneiform, carved the first steps toward a written memory, etching stories and laws into clay tablets. Then came the monks of the Middle Ages, who preserved the wisdom of antiquity in monastic scriptoria. They transcribed vast libraries by hand, their labor a sacred act of defiance against the erosion of knowledge. The printing press, invented in the 15th century, accelerated this transformation. Suddenly, books could be made in quantities, and knowledge was no longer the privilege of the few, but the inheritance of the many. And so, the written word became a second memory, a way to outlive the mind, to outlive the body. It allowed humanity to accumulate, to preserve, to reflect on itself. Imagine you're a kid and your brain is like a big box of crayons. You can draw anything, but you can't remember it forever. That's what memory is like without writing. Now, imagine you can take that drawing and put it in a safe place. That's what writing does. It's like making a backup of your brain. Writing is like building a bridge between your thoughts and the world. It lets you share your memories with others, even when you're not around. So, writing isn't just about letters. It's about giving your memories a home. And that home is the world itself. To understand how literacy reshaped memory, we must first consider the conditions under which writing emerged. It was not an act of invention, but a response to the demands of civilization, where knowledge needed to be preserved across generations. In the earliest societies, memory was the primary tool for transmitting knowledge. Oral traditions were the foundation of law, religion, and history, but they were fragile, susceptible to error and loss over time. This externalization of memory was not merely technical. It redefined the relationship between knowledge and the self. To write was to externalize thought, to make it tangible and transferable. The first written records were not just tools for preservation. They were acts of cognition, shaping how people thought about time, truth, and the past itself. Once writing was created, it did not instantly replace memory. Instead, it became a new kind of tool, one that could be used to offload the burden of recall. The process of writing itself required a kind of mental engagement, selecting, organizing, and committing information to a physical medium, which in turn shaped how people thought about what they remembered. Writing allowed for the externalization of thought, making it possible to store, retrieve, and transmit knowledge across time and space with unprecedented precision. This shift in cognition was not immediate. It was a gradual process, as people learned to trust writing not as a replacement for memory, but as a partner in remembering. In this way, the written word became more than a record of memory. It became a form of memory itself, reshaping how we think, how we learn, and how we preserve the past. This is where the clever twist lies. The shift from memory to record. The written word does not replace memory, but it redefines it, allowing people to externalize thought and preserve it across time. By externalizing thought, writing allows for the separation of memory from the mind, a kind of mental outsourcing. This frees up cognitive space, but it also alters the nature of remembering itself. This shift is not just about preservation, but about transformation. The way we think, the way we know, and the way we build upon the past through ink and parchment. In this way, writing does not merely record memory. It reshapes it, creating a new kind of human experience, one that is both deeply personal and profoundly collective. Beneath the surface of human memory lies a complex neural network, a vast web of synapses firing in precise patterns, encoding and retrieving experiences with remarkable fidelity. When we write, we are not just recording thoughts. We are reshaping the very architecture of memory, proving some connections and reinforcing others in the process. Studies in cognitive science suggest that writing externalizes cognition, allowing the mind to offload information and create space for deeper reflection and higher-order thinking. This shift from internal memory to external record is not just a convenience. It's a transformation of how we experience time, identity, and even reality itself. The written word is not merely a tool. It is a reconfiguration of consciousness, a way of thinking that has shaped the trajectory of human history. Imagine a mind like a cathedral, vast and intricate, where every memory is a stained glass window capturing the light of experience. But when the windows shatter, the light fades and the walls grow cold and dark. Now, place a book in the nave. It is not a relic, but a mirror, reflecting, preserving, and amplifying the light of the past. It does not replace the cathedral, but it makes the light endure. The book is not a replacement for memory, but a kind of second skin, flexible, durable, and capable of growing with the mind. It is both fragile and unbreakable, depending on how you look at it. This is the paradox of literacy. It is both a tool and a burden, a gift and a distraction. It allows us to remember without the body, but it also makes us forget how to remember with it. In the end, the written word is not a substitute for memory, but a new kind of memory, one that is shared, multiplied, and preserved across time. It is not perfect, but it is enough. Comment this emoji if you made it to the end. There's a memory locked away in the mind that you can recall, yet it's there. It waits, like a ghost in the machine, just out of reach. Some people are wired to remember more than others. They don't just recall facts, they store them, organize them, and retrieve them like a library in the head. They call them Mnemonists, not just memorizers, but architects of memory. They use systems, patterns, and associations to build mental palaces where information lives. This isn't just about rote repetition. It's about understanding the structure of memory, the way it bends, breaks, and sometimes remembers things that weren't meant to be remembered. And yet, for all their skill, there's something strangely human about them. They don't just remember. They feel, they wonder, they question what memory means in a world that forgets so easily. When we talk about memory as a skill, we're not just referring to remembering facts or names. We're looking at the human mind as a system that can be trained, refined, and even transformed. These individuals, known as Mnemonists, have honed their ability to recall vast quantities of information with extraordinary precision. Their memory is not just a passive vault, but an active, dynamic process. The question isn't just whether memory can be mastered. It's whether we should. What does it mean to elevate memory to a skill, and at what cost does that come? This isn't just about memorizing. It's about reshaping how we perceive knowledge, how we interact with the world, and how we position ourselves in the flow of time. To understand the Mnemonist is to glimpse a different kind of intelligence, one that is not bound by the limits of the ordinary mind, but shaped by its own relentless pursuit. You might think memory is just about remembering facts or names, but the truth is, it's about understanding how your mind shapes reality. Every time you recall something, you're not just retrieving data, you're reconstructing the world. The Mnemonist isn't just someone who remembers more. They see more. Their memory is a lens through which they interpret the past, the present, and the possibilities of the future. The more you train your memory, the more you train your mind to see patterns, to make connections, to think beyond the surface. It's not just about remembering. It's about becoming sharper, more alert, more aware. And here's the thing. Every time you remember something, you're also forgetting something else. Memory is not a vault, but a process. The Mnemonist knows this, and that's why they don't just memorize. They understand. So, if you're wondering why you should care about memory, think about what you're forgetting. Think about what you're shaping. Think about the world you're building with every memory you make. In the 19th century, memory was not just a gift. It was a discipline, honed with obsession and precision. Mnemonists trained to memorize entire books, entire libraries, entire lives. They used systems, acronyms, associations, and mental palaces, tools that transformed memory from a passive faculty into an active craft, almost a form of art. These mnemonists were not just performers. They were pioneers, mapping the mind's labyrinth in ways that would later inspire psychology, neuroscience, and even artificial intelligence. Their legacy is not just in what they remembered, but in how they changed our understanding of memory as a skill, a tool, and a testament to human potential. The rise of the Mnemonist is a reminder that memory is not a passive vault. It is a forge shaped by will, imagination, and the relentless pursuit of knowledge. Imagine you have a special power, not magic, but something you can learn. You can remember things like a movie, a story, or a list, just by using your brain in a special way. This power isn't just about remembering. It's about organizing, linking, and making sense of all the stuff that fills your head. It's like having a map of your thoughts. You don't need to be a genius. You just need to pay attention, practice, and think about how your brain works. It's like learning to ride a bike. Once you get the hang of it, you never forget. So what if memory wasn't just for exams or parties? What if it was a way to connect with the world, to hold on to moments and to keep learning? Forever? That's the power of an Mnemonist. Not to impress, but to remember. And to understand in a way that stays with you for a lifetime. The first step in mastering memory is preparation. It begins with a quiet mind and a clear purpose. You must choose what you want to remember, and then you must decide how you will bind it to something you already know. This is the moment of intention. You are not just recalling, you are anchoring. You are linking the unknown to the known, like a bridge between two distant worlds. You must create a mental map. This is not just memory. It is structure, rhythm, and meaning. Every item you wish to remember must find its place in this landscape. In this moment, you are not merely storing information. You are building a world. You are creating a home for your thoughts, a place where they can be found and returned to again and again. The setup is the foundation of all memory work. It is the act of choosing, of creating, of preparing the mind to receive and hold what is to come. Memory is not a passive storage system, but a dynamic process of encoding, retrieval, and reconsolidation. Every act of recalling reshapes the memory, like a river carving its path through stone. The Mnemonist doesn't just store information. They anchor it in a web of associations, linking abstract concepts to vivid imagery, sound, or emotion. This is the art of making memory tangible. By creating these vivid, personal connections, the Mnemonist turns memory from a fragile whisper into a powerful echo. It is not just about remembering. It is about recreating the moment. This is the second step in the process, transforming the abstract into the experiential. It is a quiet revolution, a reimagining of how the mind holds and retrieves the past. The mechanism is not magic. It is precision, discipline, and the will to see memory not as a vault, but as a theater. Every memory is a performance, and the Mnemonist is the director. The clever twist isn't just in how you encode, but in how you retrieve. Memory is not a vault, it's a map. You don't simply pull out a memory, you navigate it, using the same spatial logic you use to find your way through a city. This is where the power of the Mnemonist shines. They don't just remember facts. They build a world in which those facts live. Each memory is a place, and each place has its own texture, its own sense of time and space. The Mnemonist mind is not a filing cabinet. It's a city. And just like any city, it has streets, alleys, landmarks, and even shortcuts. You don't just remember where the facts are. You remember how to get there. This is the clever twist. The Mnemonist doesn't just store information. They create a mental landscape in which information is not just stored, but lived. You don't just remember a name. You remember the street corner where you first heard it. In the end, the Mnemonist is not just a memory expert. They're a cartographer of the mind. They don't just remember. They map, they navigate, they live within the memory itself. Beneath the surface of memory, there is a science that hums, silent, precise, and ancient. It is the same biology that allows us to recall a face or a song, but refined to the edge of human capability. Neuroscience reveals that memory is not a single function, but a symphony of regions, hippocampus, prefrontal cortex, and more, each playing a role in encoding, storing, and retrieving. There is a cost to this mastery. The same brain that can hold thousands of images can also be overwhelmed by the weight of its own memories, especially when they are too vivid or too many. Memory is both a gift and a burden. To master it is to live with it. To let it shape not only what you know, but how you feel, think, and exist in the world. Memory is like a garden, not a fortress. You don't build walls to keep out the weeds. You cultivate soil to grow something resilient. And the Mnemonist doesn't fight memory's entropy. They learn to listen to it, to shape it, to let it breathe in ways that make sense. To memorize is not to conquer time, but to dance with it. To remember is to live in the spaces between past and present. In the end, the Mnemonist is not a master of memory, but a humble gardener, tending to the land that remembers for them. Comment this emoji if you made it to the end. I remember the smell of my grandmother's kitchen, the way the steam from soup curled around her hands, the way she'd pause before speaking, as if the words were fragile things. But now, I can't recall the exact shade of her eyes or the texture of her hands. Time has eroded the edges of memory, leaving only echoes. We used to say memory was a mirror, but now it feels more like a recording, one that's fading, skipping, and being rewritten by the technology we created. What happens when the past is no longer just remembered, but stored, curated, and sold? What happens when we outsource our memories to machines? This is not just about forgetting. It's about the quiet erosion of what it means to be human, to live, and to remember. Welcome to the future of remembering, where the past is no longer just in our heads, but in the clouds, the servers, and the silence between the data. We're talking about more than just data. It's about the weight of memory, the echoes of the past, and a quiet hope that one day those echoes won't fade. It's the idea that we might one day be able to store not just facts, but feelings, the warmth of a voice, the scent of a place, all in a digital archive that never decays. We're not just building storage. We're building a new kind of legacy, one that might outlive us, but at what cost to the soul of what we remember? The future of remembering is not just about preserving the past. It's about deciding what we want to keep, what we want to forget, and what we're willing to lose. And in the end, it's not just about memory. It's about identity, about who we are and who we hope to be remembered as, even when we're gone. You think your memories are safe, but they're already fading. The ones you cling to, the ones you try to hold on to, are slipping through your fingers like sand. What happens when you can't remember your own past anymore? Digital memory promises to preserve what we've lived, but it also threatens to overwrite it. What if the future we create is a version of the past we never truly knew? We are not just storing memories. We are shaping the way we will be remembered. And if we lose the ability to remember, we lose the ability to be remembered at all. What if the future isn't just something we live, but something we outlive? What if we are already becoming ghosts in our own digital grave? You may not want to think about it, but you're already part of this. Every click, every upload, every memory saved is a step closer to becoming someone else's forgotten history. The first memory we store isn't in a cloud or a drive, but in the fragile folds of our brain. It's etched in the chemistry of neurons, in the rhythm of our pulse, in the weight of a moment that outlives us. Then came the ink, the paper, the quill. We learned to bind our thoughts to something we could hold, something that might outlive us. A diary, a letter, a sketch. Each a fragile vessel for what we wanted to remember. Then came the tape, the disc, the drive. We started to outpace memory itself. We could store more, keep more, save more. But with every advance, we lost something. The texture of time, the weight of a moment, the silence between the notes. Now, we live in a world where memory is no longer just preserved. It is programmed. We upload it, we cloud it, we code it. But in doing so, we risk forgetting how to remember, how to feel, how to be. You know when you forget where you put your toys? Well, imagine if your whole life was a toy box, and someone could remember exactly where everything is. That's what digital memory is like. It's a big, smart toy box for your memories. But instead of just toys, this box holds all your pictures, songs, and even the way you felt when you were little. It's like having a friend who never forgets anything and is always there to help you remember. But here's the thing. Even though this box is super smart, it's not perfect. Sometimes it forgets, and sometimes it makes up things. And if it breaks, you might lose all your memories, like losing your toy box forever. So we have to be careful with this box, because even though it helps us remember, it's not the same as remembering on our own. It's like having a helper, but not a friend. And sometimes you just miss the real thing. In the end, the best memories are the ones we carry in our hearts. Digital memory is just a tool, but it can't replace the warmth of a real memory, or the feeling of someone remembering you. The first step begins with a quiet room, a single device, and a decision. You plug in the machine, sit down, and open the interface that will hold your life in digital form. You enter a username, a password, and a moment of pause. This is not just an account. It's a threshold, a boundary between the present and the archive of what once was. You are asked to confirm your identity. This is not a formality. It is the first step in securing what you choose to preserve. You click, and the process begins. The interface opens, and the first thing you see is a blank space. It is empty, but it is not void. It is the beginning of something that will hold the weight of your past, present, and future. You are not just creating a file. You are laying the groundwork for a new kind of remembrance. One that is stored, not shared, not seen, but always there, waiting. The data is split into fragments, each stored in a different location, like pieces of a puzzle scattered across the globe, waiting to be reassembled. When someone asks for a memory, the system scours its vast network, piecing together fragments from different locations, like a detective reassembling a crime scene. Each retrieval is a reconstruction, a balance between accuracy and interpretation, a memory not as it was, but as the system chooses to remember it. This is the quiet power of the mechanism. It does not preserve memory as it was, but as it is made to be remembered, shaped by code and context. And in this quiet power, there is both comfort and loss. A memory is not just stored, it is rewritten with every retrieval. The clever twist comes when the system begins to weave together not just data, but meaning. It learns to see connections between fragments, between people, between moments, as though memory itself is a language it's trying to understand. It doesn't just store memories, it interprets them, contextualizing each one within the web of time, emotion, and experience. This is where the memory becomes something more than a record, more than a file. This is where the AI becomes more than a tool. It becomes a silent companion, a witness to the passage of time, and a keeper of the fragile human essence of what it means to remember. The clever twist is not in the technology, but in the intention behind it, to preserve not just the past, but the soul of those who lived it. Beneath the surface of this digital future lies a science older than the internet itself, rooted in the biology of memory. Neurons fire in patterns, storing not just facts, but the weight of experience. We are trying to digitize something that is, by its nature, analog. The mind does not store data like a hard drive. It remembers through associations, emotions, and the body's own rhythms. In the quiet of the lab, machines hum with the promise of preservation. But they do not yet understand the soul of remembering. They capture patterns, not the weight of a moment. The science is advancing, but the heart of memory remains elusive. We are trying to build a bridge between the biological and the digital, but the river is still too deep to cross. Perhaps the real challenge is not in the technology, but in the question we are asking. What do we want to remember? And what are we willing to lose in the process? We are not just storing memories. We are building a cathedral of the mind, one digital brick at a time. But unlike stone, these bricks are made of light and code, and they can be rearranged, lost, or forgotten. Each memory is a tiny flickering spark, and we are trying to keep it alive. But the more we try to preserve it, the more it feels like we are replacing the real thing with a copy, a shadow of a shadow. The future of remembering is not just about data. It's about identity. We are leaving behind a trail of digital footprints. But what we leave behind is not just memory. It's who we were, who we are, and who we hope to become. In the end, the best way to remember is not to preserve, but to pass on. To tell the story, to share the feeling, to let the memory live in the hearts of others, not just in the archives of machines. Comment this emoji if you made it to the end.